Hi everyone, welcome to Football-Oranje podcast, but we're here in person. So if you're listening on any of the podcast provider other than YouTube, you can switch over to YouTube and come see us. I'm Michael Statham, Mike Bell's here, Abdul's here, and we're going to talk about the new Eredivisie season 2024-25. We're really excited. First of all, we're actually in person, so we must mention that we've decided to meet in Edinburgh, home of one of us. I wonder who. But yeah, good to see you both.
Yeah, nice to see you guys as well, and it's good to actually discuss some Eredivisie in person. We've got quite a lot to talk about.
Well, we've met many times online. I'm really happy to meet you guys in person and very excited to talk about the new season for Dutch football.
So we're in person. Of course, we're all wearing our Netherlands kits, courtesy of Abdul. Thank you very much, Abdul, once again. Throughout this show, it's quite a long one. We'll get that. We're going to talk about every single Eredivisie team. Of course, if you want to get involved, just send us a comment, whether that's on social media or on the YouTube video, and let us know what you think of the new season, who you think won the league, which players you think could impress, and everything else. But we're going to talk about everything. We're going to start with the top teams, of course. People will be most interested in that, I think. But we'll get down to those teams, mid-table, the relegation teams. We do it every season. We'll spend at least a few minutes on each team. Without further ado, should we start with PSV, the champions, except they lost the Johan Cruijffschaal to Feyenoord after a 4-4 epic final one on penalties. For those that, if you like, getting into Dutch football, they might not have seen that. And that game gave us a big indication for the whole season. But I spoke to you off air, Mike, about PSV. We think that they might retain the title again. Abdul, you in agreement with that? Are they the strongest team in the country?
Well, PSV maintained their coach. They still have the same coach who won the title last year. They they have some reinforcement for the defense. They kept very important players. The team looks strong in all positions. So I think they are the main candidate to win the title this year. Yes.
Yeah, I think that, well, we'll get to it with every club, but it's hard to talk about them yet because the transfer window is still open. And it's the same, especially when we talk about Ajax, when we'll get to them. There's a lot of players that still could go, and there's a lot of players that still could come in. Now, PSV against Feyenoord look very weak defensively, but that's because they've not signed the extra centre back yet, because it looks like they're trying to go for Sepp van den Berg. By the time the season starts, they might have him. They might have to wait till August 31st, but they want an extra centre back. And that's what they need, because they've lost Romalo to replace him with Flamingo, who looked dreadful against Feyenoord, but that's because the left back was also dreadful, and Oppegard, who didn't look ready for that type of match. So in terms of PSV up front, they've got the strongest striker, they've got the strongest backup striker, and they've got the strongest wingers in Noah Lang and Bakayoko. So I think overall, their squad still looks very strong. But we'll see by the 31st of August if they lose Schouten, if somebody comes in for Veerman, if somebody comes in for, say, Bakayoko and they lose him, who do they replace them with, and how strong they will come September. But right now, they're definitely the strongest side.
Yeah, they are definitely the strongest side. And when you look at the players they have, I don't think they're all going to go. I don't think they're all going to leave. I can't see that actually happening at any of those top sides, maybe other than Ajax, because they're trying to ship a few players on. We'll talk about them later, of course. Sepp van den Berg coming in will be a great signing, but it's looking less and less likely by the day, isn't it? Because I think Liverpool like him, and there are some other teams as well that are interested, maybe from the Premier League. I think that they will be fine in the long haul, because you have to think about this as well for come April, May, when lots of things have changed. Who is still going to be there? And I just think with PSV, they'll win a lot of their games again like last season. They'll have the firepower just blow people away. That I don't think I see with as much confidence from Feyenoord, Ajax, AZ and Twente, who are the 5 teams to me that I believe will make up quite a strong title race. I think for a long time we might see 5 teams really giving it a good go. European football will have a big impact on this, but we're anticipating all 5 will be involved in the league stage of every competition in Europe. But PSV, yeah, Peter Bosz is still there. That's consistent. They've still got most of those players. I still think that will happen. They'll keep most of them. But if they lose someone, I think they'll replace them. I think Veerman goes, they'll replace him with someone. I don't see Boskagli going, but they'll need a new centre back. They'll probably replace him. But yes, they are still short of a few players, and that was clear to see. if they'd had Sepp Van den Berg and Dest fit, for Dest won't be fit till January, by the way, then I think PSV would have easily won that Johan Cruyff. They had the goals to win that game. It would have been 4-2, 4-1 or something, and they would have been fine. So it really, in the long haul, unless things really change, something unexpected happens, I don't see past PSV.
Yeah, it's very unlikely for Feyenoord, who has a new coach now, to compete. But they might come second, actually. I saw how the team was yesterday. It looks like a decent team. There are some flaws that need to be fixed. For Ajax, I think they are still in the place of recovering from the disastrous performance for last season. They had a good start this season with 2 wins in the Europa League. But still, I think the team needs a lot more to be able to compete for the title in the Eredivisie.
Yeah, and I think that we'll get onto Feyenoord next, and I think there's a lot of question marks over the coach. It was, especially in pre-season, because they were getting hammered by Benfica. They got hammered the next match, and then it was only yesterday you kind of saw the match play well at times, but defensively, even with near their strongest defense, they still shipped in 4 goals, and they had a back 5.
Yeah.
So there's a worry there that do they have that midfield protection? You think they would, because they have Ezekiel, looks like a very good player. They have Zerouki. They have Timber to come back in. They should be strong enough to mount a title challenge, but I still think they're going to lose a couple of players short. And then you're looking at Malambo and Ezekiel to step up and really prove that they are the top talents that every Feyenoord fan thinks they are. But my worry right now is, does Brian Prisk's formation and tactics come across quickly as Arne Slot had him playing? Because you've seen Slot now, he's a Liverpool, and Liverpool fans are already loving the way that they're playing in pre-season. Can Prisk come in, change the formation to a back 5, change the way they play, and get them cooking straight away? And I guess the main fear for them is what happens if a club does come in for Jimenez, and then they're left with Ueda, who looks like a massive downgrade as soon as he starts playing. So I think with Feyenoord, it's another team that you're waiting for 1st of September. Let's see how they line up. But I think it's going to be very close between these two sides. I think there's going to be a lot of transfers in and out for both sides. PSV are going to lose Jordan Teze. Looks like he's going to Monaco. Who did they replace him with? Who did Feyenoord replace Wiefer with, now that he's gone to Brighton? Who would you replace Jimenez with if he goes? So yeah, I think there's question marks for both sides, but I'm expecting a very, very tight title race.
Me too. I don't know how many of those 5 teams will still be in that title race come the end, but I do feel like Feyenoord are still that closest challengers. I think if you're going to say he's going to finish second, I think I'd say Feyenoord. We're still with some confidence, even though they had that terrible pre-season. If people aren't aware, it was like 5-0 to Benfica, wasn't it? And then like losing 3-1 to Monaco. But the Johan Cruyff was a pretty good performance in some ways, in some aspects. So they're playing a 3-4-3 now, aren't they? Like basically a 5 at the back, let's be honest. It's 5 defenders. And I was thinking, why do that? Doesn't it suit them to still play the 4-3-3? But then I thought, no, because they've got Hansko, Balin and Hertrauda, who as a 3 would actually, that works really well. But are they all actually going to be there come September the 1st? I don't think they are. So then I'm a bit confused why he's doing that with the players he's got, unless it's a coach just wanting to play that certain way. And I think it could work really well in Europe, but I don't think it will work well in the league. I think there will be times where Feyenoord can't break teams down. They'll have maybe Jimenez, maybe isn't there in a way, there's deputising or whatever. And because you can't, these best players can't play every single game this season. There are far too many games for that, especially with Europe. So Brian Priske has to get the best out of this system that he wants. And I thought that the double 10 behind Jimenez worked really nicely. Stengs getting on the ball really well, playing some nice passes. I think the wing backs coming forward, it worked okay. Lopez is like the third choice left back, and he's going to go, I think. But if you put Hartman in there when he's back fit, or Huismaal, I think they do well there. So there's that threat that looks a bit different for Feyenoord. They are not going to be the same side as last season at all, really. But they are going to lose a couple of those players, and I think they'll be weaker for it. And given what you just said, Mike, they've playing this new system with 5 defenders, and yet they conceded 4 goals, and they looked all over the place. So they're not ready yet. And I think a few poor results sets them back already. But I think Priska was quick to point out Feyenoord drew their first 2 games last season. And well, you could argue that might have cost them the title race. If they have a slow start again, they'll quickly out of it by then, because you can't drop many points in this league if you want to win it. The team that wins the league will only lose like once, twice, 3 times, maybe over the whole campaign. But I still think they've got a bit more than the other teams. Gosh, what else is there to say about Feyenoord? I think it's just a question of who stays, rather than who's coming in. I think if you keep those best players, they'll play well and they'll get something going. But was it Julian Carranza? Is he from South America, isn't he? He seems like a promising striker, but I've not seen him play yet, so I can't say much about him. I guess on the plus side, I've noted here that Priska does speak Dutch, but he hasn't really to the media. But it's just good that he's integrated, and that won't be too much of a problem for him. Yeah. Anything else on Feyenoord?
Some fans are worried about the 5-0 defeat against Benfica. But I just want to remind them, when Slot took the job, the team struggled against Drita, a team from Kosovo. That was a 0-0, and then it was like a remontada from 2-1 to 3-2 in the last minutes of the match. But then the team developed until they reached the final of the Conference League. So I will not really count the friendlies as something that you can, judge the team by. The defenses of PSV and Feyenoord do have many flaws, and we saw that yesterday, conceding 4 goals in a final, something very big, really. So I'm sure they are concerned about this. But the bright side about PSV and Feyenoord is the past 2 or 3 years they have been making good choices for buying players, except for maybe some exceptions, like for example Ueda. I don't think he was something special at all. But for the rest, I think they did a good job, buying and selling also some players. I think PSV and Feyenoord will look good this season, in my opinion. It's all about Ajax, how they will be fixing the problem they've been through last year.
Yeah, I think what's interesting yesterday about the game was that Feyenoord have actually signed quite a lot of players already this summer. They've got Mitchell and they've got Small, they've got Karanfa, but none of them featured against PSV. None of them were in the side. None of them came off the bench. So you've got a lot to see from them players. I know that they're quite excited about Mitchell. But again, he's young, Costa Rican, not seen him play in Europe yet. Same with the striker they've brought in. So these are unknown quantities that are coming in. They're not experienced European players that can maybe impress in the Champions League. These are ones that have brought in to try and hope that they can take the club to the next level. And whether it works or not, we'll see. And it's the same with Brian Prescott, whether it's going to work or not, we'll see. He's already made some big decisions. Justin Bile got dropped yesterday for Welland after, concedes 4 goals. So, yeah, we'll see.
A penalty shootout.
True. Yeah, but he also conceded a penalty. So, and he probably should have been sent off because he was on the yellow card. So, it's a big wait and see. But it's the same with all these clubs, because we've got to talk about Ajax next, and they've got a new coach. Farioli, they've only made 1 signing. They're trying to do a fire sale. Basically, anyone that's not called Gerald Hato's up for sale. If you come in with some money, you can have them. But I think that until they get the squad that they want, we're not going to see the best, because they want to have Wout Weghorst up front. They want to have Pablo Rosario in. They want to have the Rajani from Juventus. And the Ajax squad could look a lot stronger, but they still need to sell 4 or 5 players who were brought in under Sven Mislintat, who were behind the downfall last season, where he came in, signed all the average players, took the squad down, and they only just reached Europe. They could have finished 5th, 6th, 7th last season if they didn't recover. Yeah. So whether they're going to be any better this year depends on what that squad looks like at the end. I think that there's potential there with Farioli. I guess it's unknown. The Europa League, they got through that, but unconvincingly against a side that they should really be beaten. This is a side that was getting to Champions League semi-finals only 4 or 5 years ago. So now they're in the Europa League qualifiers struggling against a team from Serbia. So it's a big growing phase from them. I was hoping that they would bring in the youngsters this season, but it looks like already one of their best youngsters up for sale. Rijkaard's nowhere near the first team. Van Axel Dongen, always unfit, can't get him fit. Mika Götze coming off the bench and pressing, he's not yet in the side. So these youngsters are coming for young Ajax, not ready yet, and the new signings aren't in yet. So it's tough to talk about Ajax and wonder if they're going to be a title challenger with the squad that they are now, because I think if they keep the squad they are now, it's 4th or 5th again, whereas if they bring those new signings, they can maybe reach top 3.
I think Ajax, again, for some people, this is a negative. People don't like Ajax, but they are the most interesting team that coming into this season again. After even last season when they were on the way down, they were still the most interesting because of all the problems they had. And I go back to a few years when they were doing really well. Again, were the most interesting because everyone was fascinated how this team were pushing the boundaries of Dutch football. And now they're on the way back up again, it seems. And I was listening to the Pascal podcast the other day, and the Ajax fans on there were saying 100% we finished top 3 this season, 100%. And I thought, it's a bit arrogant to think that, isn't it? And we'll talk about RZ and Twente in a minute, but I was shocked by how confident they were to finish. Now, I do think they'll finish 3rd, by the way, but I know there might be some of us here that don't think that. But I think that they will finish in the top 3 with 3rd. As for being in a title race, they might give it a go for a little bit, but I think they will fall behind PSV final, who are stronger, who got a bit more about them. But Farioli is an interesting head coach, and I think he will do a good job there. And in time, they will get back to that level, won't they? I think there's that confidence that they will, but there's too much still to figure out. Like you said, Mike, all these players that have got to go still so they can raise some funds to sign to new players. They've admitted that this is Alex Cruz, I think his name is. So he's the new sort of technical director, isn't he? After all his problems last season, that he might be having invested interest in the club with his finances. I won't talk about it because it's a bit boring, really. We want to talk about football. And they spoke really well, actually, the technical directors in this pre-season sort of clip, if you like, to the Ajax fans. And they said about how they've got to get rid of, they want to get rid of 10 players to sign 4, but they've only signed 1 so far, Traore, who's come back, and he was okay. I mean, as an Aston Villa fan, I watched him a few years after he left Ajax and thought, very kind of, how do I put it, flash in the pan kind of player. Will play really well 1 game off the bench and then won't do anything for 10 games. But always likes to try his best and do something really wildly different. But I don't think he's a player Ajax are going to suddenly be relying upon. They have lots of young players. They have lots of players in their sort of mid-20s as well that have come in the peak of their career but haven't got the best out of them. I mean, Sosa's probably the good example of that, who's done really well in the Bundesliga and has gone to Ajax, who should be doing well, but hasn't, and now he's not really interested in him staying at the club. There are a number of players like that, which Farioli either has to sell or get the best out of, and it's such an unstable situation. He's just lucky that he's new, and I think people are buying into his previous work and that he can do something good. I think in terms of Europe, we're talking at a time where they could still get knocked out of Europe. If they're playing Panathinaikos now, and if they lose that in the Europa League qualifiers, they get knocked out maybe against Lons in the Conference League qualifiers. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope they can get through at least 1 round of those and get to a European competition. But that aside, I think it's a team that will grow throughout the season and get better, definitely. But it's not ready yet for a title challenge. I don't think anyone, it will be a massive surprise if they win the league.
Well, many people thinking that Ajax will be 3rd, as you said. Actually, that will depend on some aspects. I wonder if Twente makes it to the Champions League. They will also buy some good players probably for the Champions League to perform better. They already got Lammers, who was really impressive last season with Utrecht when they got him. Twente, they got him from Utrecht. And they might also get some more. They might also get some more players if they make it to the Champions League, and that will make them even candidates to not to win the Dutch league, but maybe to become 3rd or 4th, or at least take some points from Ajax and AZ. It's also possible, yes. So it's kind of still a mystery for Ajax how far they will go, how good they will perform. The first 2 wins in the Europa League, okay, they were not very convincing, but they did what it takes, and they took the best of it. They qualified. I guess the match against Panathinaikos will tell a lot. It's kind of challenging team. It will not be an easy opponent, so that will tell us a lot about how Ajax will go this season.
I think one of the biggest worries for me is that if you're a selling club and you need to sell players, you don't tell anyone you need to sell players because then clubs don't know that you're struggling and struggling for money. So them saying that they're going to sell these 4 players and put them down to reserves, and there's reports coming out they want 10 million for Savannah Voss, who's only played a handful of games. And no club in their right mind is going to offer 10 million for Savannah Voss. You're not likely to get 2-3 million for him because they know they're struggling. So I worry that they're not going to be able to raise the funds that they want from these players that they've bought mistakenly, because some of them were a lot of money. The player Tahirovic they bought from Roma was a lot of money. Sutawa was a lot of money, and they've underperformed. And trying to get rid of these players, they'd be lucky to raise 20 million from selling 4 or 5 players. Yeah. And then what are they going to do? So that's the worry for me, because then it's going to come down to, okay, now we need to sell one of our big players. And that's going to be a Bergwijn. Somebody might even come in and put a cheeky bid in for Hato. And then if it gets towards the end of August, they're going to end up going, we need to sacrifice this player. Because
what about Robbie or Taylor?
Taylor, I don't think he's worth enough as they want. I mean, he was hauled off at half-time against the Serbian team because he was so bad. And he's one of these players that one game looks like he could be a top midfielder. Next game looks terrible. Robbie and Hato are the prized assets. Robbie's the one that could end up going if somebody offers 40, 50 million, then can Ajax really say, no, thank you? Because they need that money, and they're not going to get it from selling Voss. They're not going to get it from selling Tahirovic or Satawa, who we know have flopped. We know are up for sale. Same with Souza. So Ajax, they need to be thrifty with the money they do get, and they're lucky that players like Weghorst will wait and hope that they go and sign him, because he's been linked to Twente, doesn't want to go to Turkey to Trabzonspor. He wants to wait for Ajax. So they're lucky in that regard. And maybe Friori's links with the fact he's Italian, it seems to be getting Rajani in from Juventus. Perhaps the links with ex-players might bring them in some better ones for cheaper, but we need to wait and see if that happens. The link to Nice is going to bring them in Rosario, and I think he'll be a decent player for them. Whether he's going to be amazing, probably not. So I still think that even if they sign Weghorst, Rosario, Rajani as the 4 with Traore, are they a better squad than Feyenoord or PSV? No. So are they going to raise the title? No. That would depend on the young players coming through, like Mika Gods, right? The ones coming through from the academy, to then raise them, the Hatos, ones that are just going to come from nowhere. Janse, the other centre-back that's just come from nowhere and is now on the verge of the first team. It's going to depend on them and what they can show to take Ajax to the next level. If they then don't prove to their Eredivisie level, then they're going to struggle again.
And like Yuri Bas coming back from NAC Nijmegen, he's been left back or left winger, playing at centre back. That is interesting, but I don't think it's going to suddenly solve a lot of problems for Ajax. There was a Dutch journalist that was saying that they've got a good squad to finish in the top 5. And I was thinking, yeah, it's a fair comment. But I think if you keep Hato, Robbie, and Taylor, I think Taylor can still have a good season. I know he's not done too well already this season. They're still good, still a really good team. And I think Fariol is going to finally fix that defence. That was just so leaky last year. But is there anything else you want to talk about with Ajax? No? Ajax. No, should we move on?
Yeah.
Let's move on. So that's the sort of traditional top 3, if you like. And that's their order of how they'll finish as well, first, second, third. Oh, Mike, let's talk a bit more about Ajax. Where have you got them finishing this season?
4th, and that's based on what they have now, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. We don't know if they're going to get the money they want. We don't know if they're going to get the players they want. But based on the squad they have now versus the other teams in the Eredivisie, I've got them finishing 4th, and that's behind AZ, because I think AZ will play a lot better than they did last year. I think that the players that they've got coming through, they're a year on. I think that up front, I think Troy Parrott's going to be a revelation. He's already been really good in pre-season. I think that they relied too heavily on Pavlidis last year, and when he didn't score, they didn't play well. And I think that having Parrott there, even Zifuk is a backup, they've got enough there to really challenge. I think that you're going to see more of a Dye, you're going to see more of Poku, you're going to see more of Van Bommel. The only worry for me is that they need another midfielder, because they've lost De Wit, the two young Portuguese players that they had on loan last year didn't really perform. They've not really signed a new midfielder. I think they need one more, because I think they're relying right now on Pierre Koopmeiners, who, if he doesn't reach the level of his brother, they might struggle in midfield. And Jordi Classy's a year older. You've got Bruno Martins Indy's a year older. Chadley Bazur is probably going to leave. Then you're relying on Wouter Goos, who's an amazing talent. I think he's going to be a future Netherlands centre-back, being the start of the defence. I think they need to sign one more midfielder to bring in some experience there. Who that is, I've not seen him linked with anyone so far. They've only signed two players. It's Parrott and Maikuma, the replacement for Sugawara, who looks very good so far. So he looks like an excellent signing. But I think you have to get one more midfielder for end of August to be set. And I think the young players will adapt to what better than they did last season. We'll see a lot more of them. And there's a reason why AZ won the Youth League a couple of years ago, because the talents that they have are so good. And I think this is the year that you see them come through and really impress in Eredivisie.
About Ajax, I think, yeah, they will end up third or fourth. I don't think they will go behind that. It's either third or fourth. And about AZ, I think they are the only team from the top five that can really relax at the moment. They don't really have any big matches coming up. They are already in the group stage of the Europa League. They are not in a rush like Ajax, for example, who has a match soon, and Twente. They did not play the Johan Cruyff Schaal, so they are really relaxing until the group stage. I think they are already doing good deals already from what I see. So the team can be actually a big contender for the top three also. Not winning the league, but the third maybe.
I mean, strange things have happened. They could make a run for the league title, but we just don't. I don't see it. I really like the RZ team as usual. I also think that they maybe, for me, win the best away kit this season. I do quite like the Alkmaar kind of on the shirt. Go and check it out if you haven't seen it. Martin Martins, not sure. It's his first job in management, isn't it? He did win the UEFA Youth League with the under-19s. So an interview I did with Bruno Martins Indy, I actually asked him, tell us about Martin Martins as a head coach. He didn't suddenly go, really good tactician, really good man manager. He didn't say anything like that, interestingly. He just said, we all want what's best for RZ. He's got a good team around him. And I just made me think for a second, is that because he's not actually that good? And he might be like pretty solid, but, might be able to do a job. But this last season was him picking up the pieces from what Pascal Janssen left when he was sacked. And he did okay in the whole, finished fourth, didn't they? So, but that was with Ajax doing poorly. Twente were better than them. They missed the opportunity to finish third in the Champions League qualifiers. So again, they go again. Can they do it this time? I think them finishing, I've got them finishing fourth. Mike's got them finishing third. I think they will be good. Watching them play Stoke in pre-season, I thought that they were well-rounded. I think they were defensively quite good, but Stoke offered nothing, it seemed. Going forward, all right, I still think that they just lack like a Jesper Karlsson. They lack a winger that's got good quality, and that's, I don't want it to be a slight on Sadiq from Breda Roda or even Van Bommel, but we're not seeing the best out of them yet. They're young players that need to develop, but they're not going to suddenly score 15 goals and set up 10 assists for Parrott. Parrott, I think, is going to do a lot of it on his own. I think it'll be a bit of everyone chipping in to help him score goals. I think he will score goals. But when I compare this to like Ajax, I still think Ajax got a better team, better players, personally. But RZ, who they got? Jurgensen, he had a good time at PSV once upon a time, but he's a goalkeeper that was like a second choice in Serie B. So, is he that good? I don't know. Martins Indy's aging. You've got Wouter Goos, who I think is brilliant. I think he'll be a really good centre back this season. He's going to be his season. Yeah, that they are a very good team. I think that top five definitely, fourth, third possibly, and they'll win more than they'll lose. I think it's a very stereotypical statement. Anything else about RZ?
Yeah, I think the Martin Martins he's hoping that he's going to be a stopgap. He's one of the ones that it could go very wrong with or it could go very right with.
Right.
He's got the players that he knows from the youth team. He's got the players that he led to the youth league championship who rely on him and they know him and know what he brings. Now, he could end up being the first coach sacked and then they bring in somebody else. But this is a problem that the whole of the Eredivisie has, that there's not a whole bunch of top level head coaches. And that's why they had to go for someone like Martin Martins and promote from within. Because if you look around the whole division, some of the head coaches, you're like, who's that? I've never heard of him. And then you don't know if he's going to be any good. And you look at Heerenveen have taken a punt with Robin van Persie. You've got the best coach probably from below the top six is at Groningen. You know, Dick Lukien did wonders at Emmen. Now he's with Groningen. We'll see what he can do with them and keep them up. But below that, you know, you got Danny Boyce who failed elsewhere. You got Henk Fraser who is average, and then you've got a lot of other names that you wouldn't be able to pick them out of a hat. Like if you saw him in the lineup, you'd be like, which one's the Dutch coach? You'd be like, no idea. Martin Martins, he could either be a great coach or it could be an okay one for AZ at the moment, and you're relying on the players to get them through. But I've got a lot of hope and expectation that these talents that led them to Youth League are going to come good. And this is the year they're going to come good. I'm expecting to see a lot more of Jaden Adai. I'm expecting to see a lot more of Ernest Poku. Van Broderode, I don't think he's very good. He's not got the output. He's been linked with Besiktas, and I think it'd be better for AZ if he just left. He's in the way of Van Bommel. Let him go. Bring Sadiq through. In midfield, they've got talents like Schouten, Lewis Schouten, who can come in and do a job. And then defence goes to, they've got Owusu Duru in goal, who's going to be number one. So there's talents all over the pitch. They just need to give them chances and hope that they adapt. And I think if they do, they can get third. I've just got a feeling that Ajax still have that aura about them next season where clubs are going to go to Amsterdam and go, this isn't Ajax, we can beat this team. And they'll attack them instead of sitting off them. And because they'll attack them, Ajax will concede goals. AZ will get third, in my opinion.
Fair enough. We'll see us right in 9 months' time. How about FC Twente then, to round off the top five? I think they'll fall back a little bit. They finished third last season. Joost Voesting, I think, is up there with the top coaches in the country. But like you said, there aren't actually that many particularly good ones out the league. Defensively, it's his strong suit. He likes to set teams up to keep tight games, and they continued to do well at home last season, Twente. I think they have a very good selection that's better than the rest of the league outside of that top five. So they will finish in that top five. Europa League is great for them. The amount of pain we've seen them in the European qualifiers, not being able to get to a group or league stage until now. But yeah, let's see if they get to the Champions League. I doubt it. We're talking at a time where they're about to play Salzburg, so we'll see. But yeah, I think solid team and can't see them doing badly. But I also can't see them also like impressing in the league this season with Europe on the plate as well. 8 Europa League ties, matches to come up potentially. But I like him. Sadilek, I think he's a good midfielder. The defence will continue to be strong without Robin Prupper. Mace Hilgers looks like he'll stay then if Prupper's going. Unestol still their goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeepers in the league, if not the best. And up top, Sam Lammers, can he do it? Can he do it? Because he didn't do it at Rangers, but scored some goals for Utrecht. I think it was 10 in half a season. That's the question. If he scores, yeah, they might even have a chance of finishing third again, or possibly challenging for league for a bit longer than we think. But they'll be all right. I think we'll be in one of those teams again that we might enjoy watching. They might beat PSV at home or something again this season. Well, they didn't last season, but you get my point. They are strong at home, and they will take on those top sides.
It's speaking of FC Twente, everybody is expecting the team to lose from the Champions League qualifier. I don't know why, really. I think they have a chance. The team does have a chance. It's the second most stable team in the Eredivisie, I think, after PSV this season, and maybe last season also. Or maybe the third after PSV and Feyenoord last season. But this season, it could be the second most stable team. They have some good names. Last season, they were annoying to every opponent. They really were dangerous. They were very close for the Champions League spot. Of course, their match is not going to be easy, but against Rapid Vienna, I think, or Salzburg, they will play Salzburg. Yeah, the match is not going to be easy, but I think the team is capable of winning and going far. But still, the team doesn't really have the character to win the league. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just have to have the champion character. They don't have it, and that's why I think they will end up third or fourth. They will compete with Ajax and AZ for the third position, in my opinion.
Yeah, with Twente, it's more of it's a good team. They've not got individual stars, and you're talking about a Dutch side that's in the Champions League now, and we wouldn't put any of the players forward to be like he should be in the Netherlands squad, because you can't really name one that you're like, oh, that's the star man on that side. Stein had a great start to the season where he's scoring goals for fun, but he's not coming into this stage where you're like, okay, he can play for the Netherlands. They got a couple of Dan Rots, the winger, decent player. Is he good enough to play for the Netherlands? Probably not. Then you've got up front, Sam Lammers, and you've still got Ricky van Wolfswinkel. Two good strikers, two good Eredivisie strikers, but whether they can do it at the next stage, so whether they can do it against Salzburg, if they do get to Europa League, can they do it there? That's the big challenge. And Twente are going down that route that really frustrates me with Dutch clubs. That they get to these stages in Europe and they don't gamble. It's the same with Go Ahead Eagles, and we'll get to them. Once they qualify for Europe, they look at their squad and go, okay, let's just see if we get through. They don't go, let's put a bit of money in, let's try and get through and then hope for the best. They go, nah, we can't spend any money. Then they end up losing players, and they're actually weaker when they get to the qualifiers, get knocked out. And then you go and sign a couple of players, and you're like, if you just signed them before the qualifiers, you might have been better. But it's the same, it's every year that happens. It's the same with Twente. I think Lammers is a good player, but all he's doing is replacing Boadu, who's now gone back to Monaco. So because then you don't even know if Lammers is going to be the one that starts, because is he going to drop Van Wolfswinkel, even though he's the one that keeps scoring the goals for him? So I'm unsure on that, but I do think Oosting deserves credit as being probably outside of Bosch now being the top manager in the league. I think that Arne Slot was the best of the best last season. Then it was Peter Bosch, and then it was Oosting. Now Oosting's now second to me. So if he does well again this year, then he's going to get a top job. There's already rumours that he could have left this summer, I think, earlier on. I think there was rumours that he could have gone somewhere, but I'm glad he stayed. I'm glad he's with his Twente side, and I think that they will be thereabouts. But I think they're thereabouts and finishing fifth because they've not went out and signed a top quality midfielder, a top quality centre back. Even saying that they lost Robin Proper to Rangers, they got a few million from him, and they're like, we won't replace him. We've got enough there. And it's like, oh, come on, just like open the purse strings a little, because there's every single side outside of PSV and Feyenoord, they need to spend. This is what Dutch football needs to take that next step. They need to have a club that's willing to spend 4 or 5 million on a player to then take the club to the next level and stop being afraid. I know Twente obviously had the money troubles, and that's why they went down a division, but they need to spend a little bit more, up the quality of the squad, then they'll be able to challenge. But right now, they're definitely going to finish outside the top three, and I'll probably be at fifth.
I see what you're saying there with clubs needing to take a gamble, but if I twist on its head a little bit, do you think this could be the strongest top five as a whole in a little while?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that the strength of top five and that all of them, hopefully with Ajax too, competing in Europe, that's nice. And it shows the Dutch league still being that sixth best league in Europe. Hopefully we can keep saying that for a bit longer, having overtaken Portugal, having that sixth team in Europe. We'll see how that goes. But we've got teams that I think can compete in Europe and get some nice wins there, perhaps. But equally, I know that off camera you said that you're worried about Dutch teams in Europe this season. Just as before we move out of this top five, how do you think they'll do in Europe this season?
Right now, I am worried. I was watching last Thursday. I was watching Go Ahead Eagles. I was getting knocked out, and they weren't good enough. Basically, they didn't sign enough players. They lost their two best players. Then got and signed replacements that were good enough to take them past a side that's decent in Bodo Glimt, but not a world beater. So Bram. Sorry, yeah, I'm getting confused. Ajax got Portugal today.
Yeah.
But Bran, yeah, they did okay against AZ last year, Bran. But I think that go ahead, Eagles. It's a missed opportunity. They had the chances in the first leg. Bobby Adekanye missed a couple of really good ones. If they just won 1-0, maybe 2-0, then they would have got through. But they didn't speculate to accumulate. They lost their two best players. One of them to Birmingham City, playing League One. I mean, it's frustrating when you're a Divisie fan that some club that can go to Europe will lose a player to somebody that plays in League One. But that's the Dutch league. Outside of the top 5, 6, anyone that offers any more than 1 million for a player is going to get snapped up. Ajax struggled against the Serbian side, Vojvodina. Should have beat them comfortably at home. Struggled to 1-0, then 2-1 away, or 3-1 away in the end. But it was looking a bit dodgy at times when it was 1-1 in Serbia. And, in the first half, Pasveer was having to make a couple of saves. It was a bit like, it's a bit ropey. The new Champions League format, we need to see what happens with that. This is an unknown this season. Like, what's Champions League even going to look like? It's, to me, I don't think they ever should have changed it. I don't think there was any need to change it. We'll see how PSV and Feyenoord can do that. And hopefully Twente, but Salzburg are a good side. In pre-season, because I've been looking at them with Leinders there, now from Liverpool, Dutch interest in Salzburg. Can he take them on and get them through? They've always been a club that's always had academy players that have gone on, like Haaland and ones like that. So I think that they'll be too strong for Twente, whatever they can do in Europa League. AZ, I think they can do enough in Europa League and Conference League to go into the knockout stages. But can I see any of these Dutch clubs going far and maybe winning a tournament? No. And I think that this is a year where the coefficient takes a step back and clubs from Portugal, maybe France, do a bit better.
Yeah, I have to say second, Abdul. But I agree that this could be a season where they take a step back from the coefficient. They'll probably retain that 6th spot because they've got enough of a buffer. But who is that team that's really going to do that and win a competition? It'll have to be maybe Ajax dropping into the Conference League if that's lucky enough to happen. Like, it's such a strange situation. But I also know bonus points for Champions League clubs now are it weighs more, doesn't it? So if Twente gets to Champions League group stage, literally league phase, lots of new terms, then maybe we're talking about more points. But you don't see RZ winning the Europa League. Like, really? I don't know. That's my thought on it. Yeah, I agree. He won't go amazingly well unless we see a shock with like PSV doing super well in the Champions League, getting to a quarterfinal maybe.
Well, the number of points is pretty much the same. If you win, you get 2 points. If you tie, you get 1 point. The only difference is moving to another stage in the Champions League will give you some good bonus points. Qualifying to the Champions League will give you 4 bonus points, something you don't get if you go to the conference or to the Europa League. And also going to the next round of the Champions League will give you also 5 bonus points. The big fan inside me says that I really hope Twente wins, their match against Salzburg. But my mind says it's better if they lose, because I think they will have a much bigger chance in the Europa League to collect some points and to go maybe to the quarterfinal or to the round of 16. I checked all the teams in the Europa League and the Conference League. They're not really as strong as before, especially the Conference League. So I would love to see a Dutch team in the Conference League. I think any Dutch team of the 5 we have left can perform very well in the Conference League. There are no big names except maybe for Chelsea. Yeah. So in the group stage, you will not face any big opponents. But again, will that happen? I don't know. About Go Ahead Eagles, I wasn't happy, to be honest, when they made it to Europe, because I know the team lacks a lot of quality. Even to beat a middle-class team in Europe. I was right. They did not even manage to defeat that team, Bran, I think. So now we don't have any team in the Conference League, unless, of course, Ajax lose somehow and they end up in the Conference League, which is not going to be an easy mission to even reach the group stage. Or Twente, because if Twente lose, they will go to the playoff, I think, of the Europa League. If they lose, so if they lose, they will go to the straight. Okay, no more playoffs. Okay, yeah, I guess then the Ajax is the only team that can actually go to the Conference League, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we will see what will happen.
That brings actually on to that part of the league now, that portion of the league, that top half teams that want to get into the Conference League, like Go Ahead Eagles did by winning the playoffs. So that it will again be 6th to 9th if the Dutch Cup winner is a side in the top 5. But if not, then things change a little bit, as people can imagine. Go Ahead did that. And if we start with them outside of the top 5, they finished 9th last season, and I would expect them to be mid-table again. I think fans are just happy they're not in a relegation battle, to be honest. Now that they're out of Europe, they enjoyed the match that they did play in there. I've got them in my table prediction to be like 10th. I mean, we'll talk about the teams that will finish above them potentially a bit later. I'm just counting on Mike's one here that he's got on the table. He's bottom 10th as well. So a mid-table season for them. But I still think they can have some good games, have some enjoyment out of the season, because finishing mid-table was like, oh, great, so what? But I think they've got enough players there that they've still got some quality. Interesting, like Jeffrey DeLonga, their goalkeeper, who I think is their best player. I think he could be off to the Championship. It shows the levels talking about here now. Losing Willemsen, of course, and Cowpers, Romans, all gone. 3 good players of theirs. Captain's gone. The new manager, Paul Simonis, haven't really heard of him before, to be honest. So I don't know, but I still think that if you look at the teams below them, it's talking about the strength of the top 5. I still think that the top 5 is looking good. The top half has actually got some decent sides, but the bottom half, pretty tragic. I think the gap between the top half and the bottom half, there will be a gap there, and Go Ahead could be stuck in between that. Yeah, so that's them, and I think that they'll be okay. They've got some good quality. Watching them play against Brand, I thought they were good in possession most of the time, but losing the ball a few times did cost them in the European stage. Yeah, some decent players. Amofa at defence, Kramer's good, but they're pretty average mid-table team.
Well, yeah, the mid-table team, I don't think it's going to be different from last season. I think we will witness Utrecht, Nijmegen, maybe also, of course, Heerenveen, Sparta, Rotterdam. I think they will be, after the top 5, most likely. Will Go Ahead Eagles have a chance to be like somewhere in the middle? I don't know really, but I see the teams I mentioned stronger. I think they will take the positions from the 6th to the 10th. And yes, after that, there is a big gap. I cannot see Almere City, for example, or Zwolle or Willem II have any chance really against the second top 5 in the Dutch league. Yep.
I think with Go Ahead Eagles, I think the frustration is that every few years in Eredivisie, you always get a side that cuts above the weight and gets into Europe. You've had, PEC Zwolle challenge for a few years and then fade away. And then you had Groningen up there, you had Vitesse up there, and now you see what's happened with them. They're down. There's always a club that sort of does well for a few years and then drops off dramatically. And I think that this is what's going to be a Go Ahead Eagles now. When they qualified for Europe, what they should have done is they should have went, right, let's get some of the best players from the 2nd division, or let's go and get some of the best players from below us in the table. But the teams that are coming up are taking some of their players. I think a player would see Groningen as a more challenging and more fulfilling move than staying at Go Ahead Eagles, because they've got a bigger stadium, they're a bigger club. Yeah. And probably a few years down the line, they'll be ahead of them in the table. I think that Go Ahead Eagles, because they've not got that reputation yet, they're always going to be okay to do well one year. We'll lose our best players and then we'll drop back to where we should be, which is maybe around mid-table, below that, scraping at just above relegation before they eventually get relegated in 2 or 3 years' time. And that's sort of what the sort of cycle is with these clubs underneath the top 5, 6. And will they break that again this year? I don't think so. I think the head coach, as we say, is one that we don't know. They lost their best players. Bobby Adekanye is still there. Whether he can do it, he's not had. We didn't look good in either of the Conference League games. Got taken off in both. Calvin Twig's a decent signing from Volendam, who's went down, but there's another couple of players that could have got from there. They're looking at about 10th. I think they're going to drop off. I think there's the clubs that are around them have made better signings this summer, and I think that they'll do better and Go Ahead Eagles to do worse, and then they'll end up about 10th. Next year, if you don't strengthen this summer, then it'll be a 15th, 16th for Go Ahead Eagles. They need to show some ambition and get some better players in.
Sure. So who is actually going to break then that top 5? Is it anyone that can do it? There's one team I think that it could, but I'm not predicting it. I think they'll finish 6th. That's Utrecht. That team that always want to try and break into that top 5, but can't quite do it. Ryan Jans is the manager though. Got a lot of time for him. I think he's great. He's funny. He's also a really good man manager, and is good at turning teams in the Eredivisie into those European chasing, cup winning teams. He can do the same thing again. He wasn't able to do it last season. He couldn't quite get Utrecht to qualify for Europe. We've been gutted about that, I'm sure. But looking at their transfer business catches the eye, and you think this could work. If Twente say are deep in Europe and they've not got the squad to deal with it, Utrecht be the team that overtake them. But signing Aronson, who looked okay, Vitesse, on loan. They've still got Barkas in goal. They've also got Taylor Booth. Signing Catalin, who was on loan at Almere last season. I like him. He's a left-sided player. David Min, I didn't think I'd be saying this, but he scored goals for RKC Waalwijk, and now he's the striker of Utrecht. And I'm sure, Mike, you probably like to have a word about Noah Ohio, who they did actually spend some money on. Was it about €1 million? They could be interesting, but they have a really bloated squad. How are they going to have a settled 11 that really kind of gets going, gets the rhythm going? I don't know how, unless the squad is there to try and compete in the cup as well. I don't know why they need so many players.
I think I say it every summer that I look at Utrecht's transfer business and I'm like, oh, this is the year for Utrecht. This is the year. This is the year to do it. And then I'm looking at their transfer business and I'm like, oh, they could do it this year. Like David Min's a good signing and Noah Ohio's a decent signing if he actually replicates what he does for the Netherlands under 21s, because he seems to score goals for them, but nobody else. I think he went to the championship and scored maybe 1-2 goals for Hull. Yeah. So that's interesting. You look at the midfield, they've got Taylor Booth, they've still got Turnster still. Yeah, he's still there.
And Verhaver.
Yeah, and Verhaver at the back. They've got experience, they've got a good goalkeeper. So you think, oh, and they've got a good manager. So you're thinking, this is the time, but it's Utrecht. They always seem to mess it up. They're the team that Ajax always say that they fear going to play Utrecht, but I always think that they always lose. I don't know. It's one of these ones that I always get excited about. They always let me down. So I've got them finishing 6th, and I don't think they'll go any higher than that. I'm not going to predict them to finish anywhere near the top 5.
The best thing Utrecht knows how to do is just giving trouble to big names, taking points here and there. But moving forward in the table, we haven't seen that, unfortunately. They had a great chance to make it to Europe and they blew it. Go Ahead Eagles was there instead. So I'm not expecting much from them, really, except for stealing, or I'm not going to say stealing, taking points here and there from Ajax maybe, or from Feyenoord. That's it. Not expecting much.
And then who else is there? I think that top half has got some good-looking teams in it. NAC Nijmegen finished 7th last season, but will they do it again? They could do. I've got them there. I'm thinking Sparta Rotterdam still haven't lost too many of their prized assets. And then there's Heerenveen, who have got Robin van Persie there. I think, should we talk about Heerenveen first, who are really exciting some people? They had a really good pre-season and then, of course, sold Osama Asari, who is their best player, which we expected. But again, like Mike said, if they take a gamble, they afford him, they keep him. Do they push on? I think they would have done. But Van Persie's the manager. Like with Martins, I said, I think it's going to go one way or the other. I think it's either going to be magic or it could be sacked by Christmas. Yeah. He's already saying things like, well, I don't need a first choice goalkeeper, I can have 2. And I'm like, well, this could either work really well or this is going to go down the pan really quite quickly. But they've had some nice wins in pre-season, and I think it's worth keeping an eye on them. I predict them finish 7th, and that could be one that goes badly wrong, and they might do pretty badly. But losing Sarri, I think they just lose that edge that could have helped them push for top 5. If it had gone well, if it does go well for them. But some expected players gone out, some experienced players have gone. And I actually quite like that. I wasn't the biggest fan of Van Beek and, I've forgotten his name now in attack. Van Amersfoort. Yeah. He wasn't really a a striker by trade. But it looks like, Carl's back could be scoring some goals from now. And yeah, they might surprise us. They might have some players there that do better than we think.
The only surprise that could come from Heerenveen, in my opinion, and I don't want to be harsh, the only surprise can be from Van Persie as a coach, really. This team, just like Utrecht, but maybe they are a little bit worse because they always fail to impress. And sometimes, again, it's big names in the Eredivisie. You suddenly see them losing 6-1, 5-1. They just concede so many goals. I've seen that about Heerenveen for the past years. It's very unlikely for the team to do anything special unless Van Persie puts his effort in the team and it creates something magical. That's the only chance they have, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've got him about 8th, and it is the Van Persie factor. And with Carlsbach, I think Carlsbach's looked good in pre-season, but Sarri going is a big blow, and they've already brought in a couple of players to replace him. One on loan from Feyenoord, who looked okay in the second division. You've got rest of the squad, like it's okay. It's nothing great, and you're wondering if they're actually going to put any of that Sarri money into the squad. And I doubt it. I'd like to see them try and bring back somebody like Daley Srinkgraven, who's kind of fallen off the radar. He's last Palmas, he's going to play for him. But this isn't a Heerenveen squad of old. This isn't one that had players like Srinkgraven, Ziyech. This is one that's relying on a bit of magic and a boost from having Van Persie as a coach. Can Van Persie be a great manager? If not, then they're going to finish what they did last year and finish around 13th, 14th, because it's a club that should be pushing for Europe. And, when I was growing up, they were playing in Europe. I remember one of the first times that I saw them was when they played Newcastle in UEFA Cup, and they had Huntelaar up front, and they were exciting. And now you look at the squad and you're just like, who would I sign out of that whole squad? And you're like, nobody, because there's nobody there. But Van Persie does make me interested in it. And I hope he gets a few more signings in. Hopefully he can lean on Feyenoord to bring a couple of more players on loan. I was really hoping they signed Tizand, who went to Heracles instead. But yeah, I think I'm hopeful from Van Persie that he can prove to be a good coach. But it could also go the other way, as you said, Michael, and he could be sacked by Christmas. So it's a wait and see. It's 50-50 at the moment.
His first match is against Ajax, so we'll see.
Yeah, big first game for him. I think another one that would be in the top half comfortably is NSC Nijmegen. Nice season last season. I still can't decide whether Roger Meyer's a really good coach or if he's not all that. Fans have always been on his back, but kind of quieting down when they did well last season, but they petered off at the end. The thing with NEC is they have a good team, good players, but it's quite thin. I think if they lose a couple of players to injury, all of a sudden they're not going to have a strong season. I think if they had a couple more additions like they did last summer, they could be pushing higher up and finishing comfortably in 6th, if not pushing higher. But they haven't. You've got Schöne, has he retired? Has he not? I'm confused. He said he was not interested in football anymore. The magic's gone from it. I'm like, well, that's not encouraging, is it? There's Dirk Proper as well, still there. Midfield, he hasn't gone yet. Does he get picked up by a top 5 side or a Serie A team? I've not really heard anything yet. They've got Ogawa signed permanently. That will be important for them as a striker. There's rumours of Sancho Hansen going to Birmingham. Great. Another player going to League One or Leeds. So that's the level we talk about of Hansen. I think he's okay. Another good team, like Utrecht, like Sparta. Better squad than some of the other teams in the league, but not really anything magically exciting to talk about. I think I was more excited about him last season than this season.
The only magic that could come is from Heerenveen, in my opinion. But the rest of the teams that you mentioned, they will be in the top 10 from the 6th to the 10th, and they will be fighting for European spot, in my opinion. But I don't think anything special will come out of them. Yeah, that's what I expect.
Yeah, I think we're NAC. Dirk Proper's their gem, and the fact that he's still there is a good thing for them. It's probably a bad thing for him. He's getting 23, 24 now. he's been linked to PSV, Ajax, Feyenoord ever since he was like 17. And it just never seems to materialize. He seems to always be their best player, but he's still there. And you're just wondering when somebody going to take a chance. He's quite small, but what he does on the field is really good. And he's great for NAC Nijmegen, but when is he going to take that next step? I'd hope it would be this summer. I saw him at the start of the summer getting linked to PSV, but they need, Joey Veerman to go. They need Jerry Schouten to go before he then comes into contention, and that's just not happened. So he's stuck there a little. And around him, and the players are coming in. They had a couple on loan from Ajax last year who did well. Are they going to get that again? Maybe not. Did benefit from signing some players on loan from Feyenoord, from PSV. I think that if they lose Hansen, maybe they can go and say to Feyenoord, we'll take Slory on loan for a year, and then he excels there. Or they take Babadi, who still can't break into PSV. That would be interesting. I'd watch NAC Nijmegen every week if Babadi went there. But they need those few loan signings. They need to see where PSV, Feyenoord, and Ajax end up before they can pick some of these youngsters and try and take them to the next level. Because I think that's where they're at. They've got a couple of decent players, but they need to rely on loans from the bigger teams to then take them to the next level. And yeah, we'll see if they can do that.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I think that these teams don't necessarily have the magic with head coaches, other than maybe Ron Jans, Robin Van Persie, but they've got the quality in players. When we talk about some of these teams lower down the league later, they don't have that quality, and they've got some very middling players in their teams. Who else is there then? I've got them to finish 8th. Where did you have them to finish, Mike?
7th. So
that probably where they are, the Conference League playoffs come the end of the season again. Then there's Sparta, who, again, a good team, but haven't lost Lauritsen yet. Alai yet, still, somehow. Kitalano hasn't gone. There are more. Eerdhausen, but I think he might be going to Twente. So they'll be okay. Top half. Anything more than that?
Yeah, I think with Sparta, you've got the experience. De Guzman's still there. I think you've got a good youngster coming through, Rosario. But yeah, they've got a few youngsters come through, under 21, Jesse Ball. But it seems it's a squad that hasn't lost anyone this summer that you'd really think they would have moved on. Nikolai being there is crazy.
Yeah.
But maybe just because PSV Feyenoord, AZ went out and got a goalkeeper. They brought in Zoot. So Alai's still there. But yeah, I see them mid-table, 9th, 8th. That's probably the best they can hope for.
Yeah, I think that's right. I've got what's the right? I'm going to go for 9th. I've put NAC 8th and Sparta 9th. Things could change. I think those positions come the end of the season be quite tight as well, quite close. Before we talk about mid-table drop that we probably now going to get onto. So where do we start in that bottom half? You like? I mean, we said go aheads could be 10th. So then you've got 11th to 18th. Of course, people are casual Eredivisie watchers. They don't know. 18-team league, 17th and 18th get directly relegated. 16th is a relegation playoff. There are 3 teams that came up again because the team that finished in the relegation playoffs tends to get relegated. And we've got 3 new teams, but they're 3 teams that have been in the Eredivisie before, and they're experienced middle-sized clubs for this league, which is in some ways good. I think as an Eredivisie supporter, rather than like a club supporter, I like that those big teams come back up and they give that league a bit of an injection of fans and attention. And often they have teams that can then go and push for Europe as well. Should we start with those sides that have come up? I want to start with FC Groningen. We talked about the rivals Heerenveen already. I think they'll be mid-table and one of those best of that bunch below the European pushers, if you like. I think they'll be all right. They've got Dick Lukien as manager, who we've talked about before in this podcast. FC Emmen was really good. He went down with Groningen and then got back up. So they've gone out and signed Oosting from Willem II for like €1 million. I didn't expect that to happen. They've brought in as well Willemsen, who's the brother of the one that left Go Ahead. Varsen, good goalkeeper. They've still got Johan Herver, their midfield. I think he did well in the second tier last season. I admit I haven't watched it. But then Bakuna, good old Bakuna, was funny enough our first interview we ever had on Football-Oranje years ago. Who sometimes causes a bit of trouble, but I think he's done well with Groningen.
It's always a red card merchant.
Red card merchant. But I think he's a right back now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so he'll be all right. Bloxile, there is once a talent, still is, I think, at centre back. Pelopessi's got some experience as well, and Postuma, I think, come good in attack. I'm sure, Mike, you'll be talking to us about some of those talents they've got there. But I think in terms of player quality manager, they've definitely got enough to not be involved in that relegation battle.
Well, Groningen was always a team that stays in the middle of the table. It was actually a surprise where they were relegated. I think they had some, they had some financial problems also, as far as I remember. But the team usually fits in the middle of the table. They are always there, and I think they will have a good season. I'm not really expecting the team to do anything special, but they will be away from the relegation zone, definitely, in my opinion. And all I can say is welcome back to the Eredivisie, really.
Yeah, I think they bring with them a good fan base, a good stadium, one of the best outside the top five. A good manager, probably one of the best outside the top five again, and a good young squad. I think they've got Bloxel centre back. He's got potential. Up front, they've got Postema, who was like a wonder kid. If you played Football Manager for years and years and years, just never was able to do it until he finally did it last year. And now he's going into the season as their first choice. On either side of him, you've got Tom van Bergen, you've got Valente, who was very exciting in the second division as well. And then, you've got experienced heads like Pelopessi and, Bakuna. So I do think it's a well-rounded squad. Going out and spending money on Tyson, I think it's a good signing. You're showing some, God knows, but we'll see if he's the one that scores the goals that keeps him up. Then it looks like a masterstroke. But I think that they're built to finish mid-table this season and push on. I don't see them being involved in a relegation scrap. I see them finishing 9th, 10th, 11th, and then pushing on the season afterwards, because I think that they've got that good young base with some experienced heads. And I think that they can have a good season this year.
Next on my little list I had in my head was talk about NAC Breda. I think that they will be more towards that relegation scrap, to be fair. And when they came up, they were a team that I think were 8th in the second tier. They were mid-table, basically. And then because of the way the playoffs works in the second tier, they kind of got lucky and just edged their way through it all, really. And thrashed Excelsior at home in that last playoff game, with Excelsior having like 2 red cards, I think it was. And then back in Excelsior, they were actually beaten quite comprehensively because of a lead they built up when they had those 2 red cards. NAC made it. Excelsior were the better footballing team, but NAC were fighting. It was a bit of like a bit of League 1, League 2 kind of football going on from NAC Breda. And I think if they bring that to Eredivisie, I don't know how well it will go. I think they'll score from the odd corner, but defensively they don't look very good. They're a strong team. The fans are great. I think I've got a lot of time for that, actually. But in terms of player quality, they've tried over the summer to make it better. And I think that will go a long way now to maybe even keeping them up. So Carl Hurfkins is a manager, and I should admit, I should do a bit more research before we started, but I spent too much time already looking at this league. I can't do everything. And he was in the old West Brom defender, from what I remember. Belgian guy. And he's a manager now, and they've got Umga. If he's still there, talk about him in a minute. He's a player of quality, but whether he goes, I'm sure he will. And if not, very young, could do something. If I look at the players they've brought in, Mamatovic is supposedly a big, strong centre back and could be good. The goalkeeper they brought in could be better than we had already. Max Ballard, I might have said his name wrong, but it came from the Australian league, and I've heard good things about him. What they have already, though, Janusek, he's a really strong midfielder and was too good for that second tier last season. He could be good, but then also Boy Kemper, for example, left back. I'm worried about someone like him if there's a regular left back throughout the season. Vandenberg, I think the fans think he's a good player, but I wasn't sure about him when I watched him at centre back. So they've got players. It's not like a mixed mismatch. They've got some players that will be very good quality and some that are absolutely Dutch second tier quality and will struggle in the Eredivisie. maybe they could prove me wrong, but I think that they will be a side that people keep their eye on this season. They'll be entertaining in some ways because they'll concede a lot of goals, but equally they could do something, especially in the home games. I've got them to finish 15th, for example. What about you, Mike?
I've got them going straight down. Yeah, I've got them in 17th. I don't think they've got that quality. I think the Ongbao's their talent, and if he goes, then unless they actually use that money to build, then I think they've not got enough to stay up.
They keep him?
Well, the only way they keep him is if his injury's that bad. They made him fail that medical, forgetting that he doesn't pass the medical for anyone else. There's Eredivisie clubs that are interested. There's other ones in Belgium. I think Anderlecht want him. That's sort of the level that he's at. He's 21, 22. He can make that step up to the top of the Belgian league. He can make that step up to probably like a Heerenveen, NSA, Utrecht even, and then impress there. But I look at the squad and I just go, that's not good enough. And some of our teams around them, I know that you're quite down on one I'm okay on, in PEC Zwolle. And I've got high hopes for somebody like Heracles, and I know I'm going to be wrong with that, but I've got high hopes. And I just look at the other sides around. I think that they lack. When I was doing the predictions, I switched them with Almere City back and forth, but I just think because Almere might have a little bit more, that they might scrape into the playoffs. But yeah, the bottom three that I have, I think they're all terrible, and I think that anyone could finish bottom. And I say I just can't see them doing anything.
Just a small comment. It's one of my least favorite Dutch teams, actually. Yeah, because they don't have many Dutch players. The team has many foreign players that will not be able to serve, of course, the national team in any ways. They do have, of course, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Boure. It's Boere. He's Bora, okay, he's 31 years old. Elias Omarsson, he's 29 years old. Yeah, so some players are kind of old. I don't see the team, I don't see players in between. They are either very young or about to retire, I would say. So yeah, I would expect the team to be relegated. I will be surprised if they still if they could stay really in the Eredivisie for this season. Yeah.
I mean, just to sort of give what most people think in the Netherlands, they think they'll go straight out down 18th. That's expected. I'm not surprised by that. And they definitely could be 18th. I'm not going to start saying, "Well, I'm eating humble pie." They could, but I think that something good will happen there, and they might even just survive and stay up. But yeah, chances are they go back down. And I definitely was thinking that when they first got promoted. By the way, I was really worried about them. Willem II are the other team that have come up. I've never heard of their manager, Peter. I don't know how to pronounce his name. That's really bad. Peter Mace, Moss, and the Belgian manager. I've looked at the players they've brought in and the players they've got already. Can't say I'm really amazed by the players brought in. Turpan was once a decent right back. They've spent money on Emilio Kera. I'd never really heard of him. Cisse Sandra's coming on loan. He was on loan with relegated Excelsior last season. But they have got Thomas and Iago there. They've got Patrick Joosten there, who's constantly trying to play in the Eredivisie, but ends up getting benched because he's not really that good, in my view. So I think they'll finish 17th, or maybe even 18th. I think they'll go back down. I don't know what's going to keep them up, but I like their fan base. They took good numbers to Bristol City the other day in a friendly. I wish all the best for them, but I don't think they're going to do anything. Who wants to fight me back on that?
Let me just say a little thing about Willem II. I don't think the team will be relegated. Somehow they know how to stay in the Eredivisie. I've seen that in the past years, except maybe for the recent years. I think they will stay. I would think the 15th or the 16th position. It's not going to be one of the teams that will be relegated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Willem II. Being a Newcastle fan, I saw Isaac for the first time playing for Willem II, and he was great for them. And I think they seem to always bring in a striker that does quite well in the Eredivisie. And hopefully between now and September they can strengthen a little bit, because I do think they look a bit weak round up front especially, but I've got them finishing just outside the top three. I think that any of the bottom four that I've got could go down and could finish 18th, but because I'm a soft spot I've got for them, I'm putting Willem II just outside the bottom three, surviving by the tiniest of threads. And yeah, it's just, I don't know the manager. I don't know some of the squads. As you said, they've got people like Badrus. He could be okay, he could be all right on his day. But yeah, it's a team that could go either way.
Okay, well, that's the 3 promoted sides. And let's talk about any existing Eredivisie sides that you think will do terribly and get relegated or be down there. And for me, and looking at your notes here, my RKC Waalwijk, they were really good under Joseph hosting. Henk Fraser came in to take his place a year ago, and they were down there throughout the season, but he sort of did just enough Fraser with the players he had to keep him up. I don't think he's a terrible manager. I just don't think he's particularly good. I hope he's not watching. I don't think he is. So I think I can say that safely. I think they could be bottom 17th, 16th, any of those positions. Wouldn't be surprised. I've written down 16th as like that's where I think they'll be. They don't have any quality. They've lost their goalkeeper that saved them so many times last season. They still got Ukili, but I don't know how long he will be there in midfield. Karama's 35 now and wasn't getting to team last season. The players are brought in, I hadn't heard of him other than Van Gelderen, who isn't, I don't think he's good enough to play in the Eredivisie. I could be wrong, but he's a right back. And they brought in a striker called Oscar Zawada. He could do something. Maybe not. Who knows? But I think they're going to be bad, really bad. And I really wanted to put them bottom of the table, but I thought, no, Fraser will do something, or Kramer will come up with a bit of magic. But no, not good at all.
Are you talking about Waalwijk? Sorry. If I'm gonna pick 3 teams to be relegated, it's definitely gonna be Waalwijk, Almere City, that might surprise you, and NAC Breda. I don't think they have anything to offer. But sometimes, okay, of course, this is football. Sometimes you see a team that works very well as a group, but I don't see that here really. So I think the 3 teams will be relegated. Yes, Waalwijk is going to be one of them, definitely.
Yeah, I think the least surprising score of any game next season is going to be NAC Breda 0, RKC 1, 91st minute, Mikko Kramer header, and that's going to be the least surprising score. But that's what they're relying on. They're relying on Kramer to come off the bench in the last 10 minutes and score a goal, and that's all they have, because they don't have anything else. They had David Min last season, but he's gone. Vassini's gone. Anything that was good about him last season is already gone. And yeah, so it's a pure team. And Van Gelderen, Groningen were trying to get rid of him last season in the second division. He was basically dropped to the reserves. He's not good enough. He was a talent coming through Ajax. He wasn't good enough for Groningen. He's not going to be good enough for RKC either. So they're going to go, I hope they're going to go down, because they're a team that I don't get excited about their squad. I don't get excited about watching them. I don't think they offer much to the league. And I think there's teams in the second division that would be, nobody warrants a place in the league, but there's teams I look in the second division, I'm like, I wish they were there. I wish that side was there. And RKC are one, a bit like Excelsior. And I know that they were the smallest side and it's the underdog, and you're thinking it was nice. But every single year they escaped relegation by the skin of their teeth, and you're like, oh, come on, just go down and let somebody else have a go. And finally that's happened this year. And you've got a club like RKC who are hanging on for dear life. And it's time just to put them down. Let the Crafts Gap come up. They've got much better talents, and then let them have a year. Yeah, I think that's the year for RKC. I've got them rock bottom. And unless Kramer scores 5 goals that make them win 5 games 1-0, that's where they're going to be.
Yeah, defensively is how they're going to do it, I think. But let's not dwell on them too much longer. I don't think they're going to be a great watch either, Waalwijk. Even if they do scrape some wins. Who else is down there that under the league then? Who else is in trouble? We talked about Almere a few times now. Let's talk about them. Rodriguez Maduro is manager there. Obviously, former player. People will recognise his name. A lot of Ajax links. So he is the new head coach, and he hasn't had a job like that so far in his career. I am of the belief that he'll be good, and he might be someone like a Van Persie, maybe, that, let's talk about Maduro. He's doing well there. I could be wrong, though. It could go really wrong, and you guys disagree with me. They will still struggle. they're a small club and could be like a Celso in a few years' time if they're still in the league, where we'll go, maybe it's time to go. But if they can progress as a club and start to push boundaries, and then they're interesting again. Very small club, very small stadium. They did well last season with Alex Pastor there. He hasn't got a new job yet as a manager, so don't know what he was doing, leaving. Maybe he fancied a break. Watch some Heroes. He loved watching Heroes hoodie, didn't he, on the side? Anyway, Maduro's come in and he's brought in some new players. Carbonell once did something in the Eredivisie. He was a regular with a club that got relegated from the Spanish second league last season. So this is the level we're talking now. Zagaritis has to come in at left back, left wing back, and do something there. But they still have Robinet and Hansen as their two main strikers, if you like, and they could come up with the goods and score some goals. But the level between this part of the league, though, and the top half is very different for me. If people are watching the English league, I think any of those top half teams could do a job in the Championship. Whereas now, I don't think Almere would survive in the Championship very long. I think they'd crumble. So they don't have the quality for me to push into the top half at all. They will do well to stay up again. I've put them 14th because I think Maduro will do something, but I could be wrong. And I think you guys think they might even go down.
Nothing to say, really.
Yeah, I've got them 16th, and I think they lost some of their best players from last year. Catalan's now at Utrecht. Van der Parra is gone. Here's a name. He scored a couple of goals last season.
Yeah.
Again, everything that's interesting about him is the fact that they've got Maduro as a head coach now. And I think he might rely on getting some players in from... I'd like to see him get some young talents in from Ajax, if they give him a hand. That might make them a bit more interesting to watch. But right now, yeah, I've not really got much positive apart from... It'll be interesting to see how he does as a head coach. Other than that, it is a small club. It was a nice story for him coming up last year and then doing so well and staying up. But I can see them going into the Eredivisie playoffs, going down. And I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Nothing to add, really.
Next, we've got a few clubs we haven't talked about that are those mid-table-y kind of clubs. Now, I want to talk about PEC Zwolle. I'll put them right bottom, which is my out there prediction, if you like. But I did have a little scroll on Reddit, and I actually saw some people, just casual Dutch football fans, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I think they'll struggle as well." So I didn't feel as alone then, actually putting them there. They've only really signed Tristan Hoyer, who was playing at right back at times at Ajax last season. I'm not sure how good he is. And Braden Manu completes that new right side for them. He's a fast right winger here from the German second division. Apart from that, who they brought in? This is a team that were really struggling towards the end of last season. They were dropping like a stone down the league. Having been in the Conference League playoff positions, they've dropped down, and I think this is it for them. I think they're just gonna no.
They have, I think, Droif, right? That's how you say his name. The guy from AZ, right? It's the same player they had from. Yeah, that's all I know about Zwolle, to be honest. The team is pretty much a middle-class team, but sometimes they suddenly fall apart, and you see them at the bottom of the table. So it's one of the mysteries of the new season. I don't know anything about them, really, and I cannot make any predictions. It could go either way. The team could be maybe between the 10th and the 15th position, or they could be in the bottom of the table. It's open for all possibilities, in my opinion.
Sorry, just quickly, one more thing. They also lost their Nat T, who was their goal scorer.
I'm a bit more positive about him. And one reason why is Van den Berg in the middle. He likes to score a screamer. I've been watching him ever since. I think there was one summer where he was doing really well for Utrecht in pre-season, and he was basically talked up by the Dutch media as being the next big thing to come out of Eredivisie. Then he had a serious injury that knocked him back for a couple of years, and then he came through at PEC Zwolle. And last season, he scored a few screamers for PEC Zwolle from midfield. So David Van den Berg is one to watch up front. They signed Boytink from Vitesse. So he's another one that's always been a football manager wonder kid. And now he's going to get a chance to be he was never the chance to be a starting striker for Vitesse for more than maybe one game a season. So now he's going to get a chance to be the main striker at PEC Zwolle. See how he does. I don't think Jonny Jansen's a very good coach. Bram van Polen's now gone, so the name that everyone knows from PEC Zwolle is now retired. So be interested to see how they do defensively. But I'm not as down as everyone else is. I've got them being safe, but not being spectacular. But yeah, I can see them finishing 15th, 14th round there. But yeah, they're not going to challenge for top half. They're not that good. But I don't think they're going to go down either.
Okay. Yeah, that's equally possible. And one of those, I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be surprised if any of those teams that I've predicted between 11th, 12th, and 18th get into that top half. So it's another side that will be in that tight bottom half. But my opinion is I'll go down. We'll see. Next one, Heracles Almelo. Depends how you pronounce it. There's a few ways to pronounce it, according to the Dutch media. Heracles is another one as well. They've signed a few good players, and to talk about them, there's a good side and a bad side. So I don't know how to pronounce Silo at Sans. Perhaps they say it is a good looking, not all these looks, but a good look. When I watch him play, little bits, good attacking midfielder, I think. So he could be adding some quality to that side that actually was lacking some last season. The manager's Erwin van der Looy. It's all right, isn't he? But on that sort of below average kind of, I think quality wise, put him into a back five, didn't he, when he came in? So we'll see more of that this season. A lot of it's going to depend then on those wing backs and the players in the middle. So who they got that's going to score the goals? Jez Hornkamp, funny named. He's sadly injured. He scored some goals last season that kept him up. Who's going to replace him? They've got this Luka Kilanovic, who actually is their record signing ever. Didn't even quite cost €1 million, but this is the league we're talking about now, this part. Could he do something? He talks a good game when I watched interviews with him. The one that was meant to be that marquee signing that could be really good was actually his former teammate, Jan Zamborek. I think his nickname Zambi or something like that. He's got good quality in midfield, but he's now injured till like January. So then I was thinking, well, they'll be okay. I've put them 13th in the league. So that these players will keep them up to set off, if you like, the lack of quality from Van der Looy as a manager. But now he's injured. I'm not sure. I think they could be dragged into relegation battle again. It all depends how all these new signings are and how many goals they bring, basically.
Just a quick comment. Van der Looy, I do have respect for him, of course, but I don't think he's a very good coach, to be honest. And I think keeping the team in the Eredivisie will be an achievement for him and for the team. The fans will be really happy if he just does that, you know. I'm not expecting much more of him, really, or of the team.
Yeah, it's a side that they've made a lot of signings. I think they've made about 12 signings so far this summer. Daniel Van Kam's another one, who a talent at under 21s. He's not really hit the level that a lot of expected from him. The main reason I want to watch him this season is for Tuzand. I think that young player of the year in the second division last year, there was talk that he could have broke into the Feyenoord midfield this season, but there's too much competition ahead of him with Malambo and Ezekiel. So he's making a step up by going on loan to an Eredivisie club. So I'm excited to see what he can do because he can score goals. He's box to box. He's big. He's strong. He can score. So he, for me, could be a real outside the top 6 contender for one of those young players that just explodes in the league. But up front, without Hornkamp, who's going to score the goals, and whether one of these guys that they've signed can do it, or they need to wait till the new year. It's kind of like the same with like Fortuna, where Sierhuis is the one that can score the goals, but he's always going to get an injury that's going to take him out for like 6 months. So I wonder with them that they've got an average coach. I wasn't a fan of Van der Looy when he was under 21 coach. He didn't do it as much as he could with the players because of his defensive tactics. But because of his defensive tactics, I think he'll keep him in their Eredivisie. But I don't think they're going to be a team that excites anyone.
Yeah, totally fair. By my recollection here, records, we've only got one more team to talk about. We did it, Fortuna Sittard. Perhaps after that we can talk about some players we think will stand out in the league and top goal scorers and whatnot. So we're not quite done yet, guys. Hope you're strapped in for a bit longer. Fortuna Sittard, I've got him as 11th, but I think that's because of Danny Bowes being the manager. He's just solid, and I think he'll keep him out of trouble at least. But I don't think he'll break into that top half of the top 9. Lots of ins and outs. I counted 13 players in. That's incredible. Sivan Ottila came in from Heerenveen. I don't think he's that good though. but maybe Danny Bowles get the best out of him. Adivoya came in from RKC Waalwijk, and another one that caught my eye was Josip Mitrovic, who they paid some money for. He could be interesting. I think he's a winger. So I don't know too much about some of these players that have come in. I'm not going to lie, but they also got rid of some of the players that weren't really that high quality. Always a club that fans are fully behind. If they start doing badly, they'll quickly rebel and they'll make their feelings known. So I think they're a club that will kick the wits about them, if you like. I think they'll be desperate to stay in the league again, and Bowles will be the factor that helps them finish mid-table.
Just like Heerenveen, maybe it could be only the name of the coach that matters. We are expecting Van Persie to do something good, but for Danny Bowles, that's how you say his name, he proved himself with the team. I think for Fortuna standards, he was great last season, and nobody expected the team to go that far really in the competition. So I'm expecting the same. I think the team can finish 10th or 11th in the table. I'm not expecting more than that really, but again, for the standards of the team, that's going to be really good as long as they maintain having the same coach. Yep.
Yeah, I think one of these sides that could finish, around 14th or anywhere up to 10th, 9th. But the X factor is the coach. They're not very much on the pitch. Just going to take them there. Mitrovic could be one. But with Fortuna, they've always had one player you're like, oh, he's really good. Whether it was the times with, Skurs was there, or they had Yilmaz. Everyone wanted to see what Yilmaz was going to do, and then he did nothing. And then there's been players here who's last year was scoring the goals that got him up the table. I think he's injured though. I think he's long-term injury. So who's going to score the goals for them up front? Midfield, they always seem to chop and change. I think they're one of these clubs that's brought in players but lost about 11, 12 so far. So yeah, it's a club that could finish anywhere from, they're not going to go down, but it could finish anywhere from 15th to 9th, and they're quite happy with that. I think their owners are quite happy with that. I don't think they're pushing to go to Europe this season, and yeah, mid-table, happy with that.
And I know the owner of the Fortuna was once quite a vocal supporter of our podcast, so maybe he still is and he's still watching, and just hearing his team finishing mid-table, I think he'd again be happy with that. So that's the league sort of team by team done. But let's just talk about some highlights that we're expecting. I loved the Johan Kauskal 4-4, brilliant game, very enjoyable. I hope we get some more of those, get some really nice games this season, and I hope a team does break that top 5 and do really well. It could be any of those teams mentioned in that top half. That teams keep hold of their best players for longer. They keep them in the league. It's something we've noticed in the past few years. It has been happening more. Players wanted to play into their mid-20s in the Eredivisie or come as an attractive proposition. I hope that the teams do well in Europe. But in terms of top goal scorer, then players that will stand out, Troy Parrott was one of my go-to ones for that. But then I thought, well, Bobby will get more supply at Ajax. He will score some goals when he just Beckhorst come in and score some goals. That'll be hilarious. I'd love to see this still happen if he signs for Ajax. We're still at the beginning of August. Things can change by next month. Luke de Jong at PSV has to be a very easy bet, if you like, for top goal scorer. Jimenez could do it again. Now it is fresh for a new season. I like the depth we've got and quality of these strikers now. We weren't able to talk about this, I don't think, last season. So that's really good. Should we just who's our top goal scorer going to be?
We did not mention Lammers. Now he's playing with a stronger team, so he could also be in that list. All the names you mentioned plus Lammers, I think one of them will be the top scorer. I cannot see any other name really.
Gower, NAC?
The team doesn't help him, exactly. Sometimes you cannot win the top scorer if your team is not really helping much, but I think Lammers has a better chance. At least he played very well with Utrecht, and now he's with a stronger team that competes for the top 3 in the table. So I go for Lammers or Broby, really, in my opinion. Yeah,
I think that was two seasons ago we had,
Giacomakis once.
And then you're looking at the strikers and you're like, who's the best striker in the league? Because Xavi Simons was finishing top goal scorer with not very many goals, and usually with Eredivisie you get a striker that scores 30 plus. And I think that this year you could name the whole top 10. I think you've got a good striker. You've got Sparta, got Oritz, and Heerenveen, you've got Carl's back.
Nicolescu.
Nicolescu. You've got Utrecht. You've got Min. You've got Ohio. I don't think either of them are 20, 30 goal season strikers, but they're decent. And then 20, you got Lammers and Van Volswinkel. Ajax have got Brobbey. They're going to get Weghorst. AZ have got Parrott. Feyenoord have got Jimenez. And PSV have got, of course, Luke de Jong, who's probably my favourite, again, to finish top goal scorer. And even off the bench, Ricardo Pepe would probably start for any other club.
Yeah.
But it's because he's at PSV, he's off the bench. And even when he's on the bench, he comes off and he scores goals. So I think for the first in a long time, you've got a list of strikers that could do it. And who knows, when he's football manager, wonder kids could come good. Boytink, Postema at Groningen, they could get 10 plus, 15 plus goals, push them towards being top goal scorer with 20. So, yeah, it's good to have good quality strikers in the league once again. And I think for me, the choice has got to be the obvious choice, which is Luke de Jong. But if Jimenez was the top goal scorer, Parrott, I wouldn't be surprised. I hope it's Brobbey because for the national team's sake, I really hope it's Brobbey that takes that next step and becomes a prolific scorer we all want. But we'll see if he can do it for a whole season, because last season at the start of it, we're still like, same old Brobbey, can't score goals, got better, but he needs to do it more consistently throughout the whole campaign. And then he can then be your number one Netherlands striker.
Unless they sell them.
Yeah, some of these players can still move on with all the things I said in this podcast. Other players stand out. I just basically made a list. I'm just going to see who I think when I look at these players. Bakayoko, I think he's going to stay. I think he's going to do really well again. Noah Lang, cannot wait to see him have a good season this season. Please stay injury free for Netherlands' sake, as well as just entertainment value, not necessarily from a PSV perspective for me. Brobbey, I want him to stay do, and smash it again, do even better than last season. Yoda Hato, I think, again, will be a good season for him in defence. He'll be playing left back, I think, this season. Saibari is looking really good for PSV as well. Who else have I got here from the traditional top three? Kaplan could be one at Ajax in defence. Could get a lot of games this season. Balen, final defender. I think he will really step up if either Hansko or Geertruida go. There's interest from Wolves, but I think they'll keep him definitely for this season.
Any thoughts of Stings?
I think he'll be okay, but I just think those ones that will really step up this season, who are those that I think will do that? I'm fingers crossed for Hinson as well. Ajax, Icelandic midfielder. I wrote down Flamingo, then watched him play in the Johan Cruyff style, so I'm not really sure I'm going to say him anymore, just based on that one game. Then after that, outside of the top three, traditional top three, Mace Hilgers, he's going to have a big season, I think, at Twente and play well again. I want to see Aronson do well at Utrecht for those American fans watching. And Lacto at RZ could be that winger that RZ really needs. I found it. Van Bommel could, yeah. I look forward to handing over to you guys in a sec to give me your names. But those are the ones I thought. But I was like, they're all top five. And other than the names we've already talked about before, like Lauritsen at Sparta, if he stays, he's going to be a good player. Ogawa. There are some good players outside of that, Dirk Proper. But I'm finding it hard to pick that player outside the top five that will come out of nowhere. And I can't do that with confidence. What about you guys?
Well, I agree with you with all the names you mentioned. I only added maybe Van Bommel, that, he could make a breakthrough. He showed a lot last season. Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, from Ajax, we have Brobbey. From PSV, Noah Lang, Bakayoko. From Feyenoord, Stengs could also make something. There are so many names, and in terms of what I hope for, is definitely Brobbey. I want to see the best of him. He's the hope of our strikers in the national team. So, yep.
Yeah, I totally agree on the names. I think this is the year of Noah Lang. I think that he's the one that I really hope kicks on. He should have been at the Euros if he stayed fit. And I think the Netherlands really missed him off the bench, because you need that confident player that can take on people, is a bit arrogant, has a bit about him, a bit fiery. Noah Lang's got all of that. I think they really missed him off the bench. But I think this is going to be his year. Other than the names already mentioned, Feyenoord, you got Ezekiel in midfield. I think he was excellent against PSV, and he got Malambo off the bench scoring goals. Other than that, AZ Adai, so got high hopes for him.
Hopefully.
If he comes good. You mentioned Lado, you've also got Sadiq, but I think Adai is the one that is the more natural talent in all of them. So I hope he comes good, and he could be a national, because we all know the national team needs wingers. So Adai, you're looking at PSV, AZ basically for the wingers. You're looking at Van Bommel, you're looking at Adai, and you're looking at Poku. Can one of them just come good? You're hoping so. We'll go through a whole podcast, and I even mentioned that Max Meerdink's still there, and he seems the player that's completely fallen off a cliff. Because last year went on loan to Vitesse. Did absolutely nothing, and he's back at AZ. He's not even played in pre-season. I don't know if he's injured, but he could be a player that goes on loan somewhere and does well. But in terms of players outside the top 5, Groningen, Valente, Blockzale if he starts, Heracles Tizand, mentioned him earlier on. I think that he's going to have a very good year. But other than that, yeah, it's all the names that you've mentioned. I hope that Dirk Proper this year gets a move, because he needs to step out from Nijmegen, because he's too good for them, and he needs to get moved. So there's a lot of young talents in the league. I think there's ones in midfield, a lot of central defenders again that can come through. In terms of right backs, you got Reed at Feyenoord, 17-year-old who was playing yesterday, and he came off the bench. But yeah, you're looking at a lot of centre backs coming through again. We need the strikers, we need the attackers, we need some goal scoring midfielders to come through. So hopefully some players come out of nowhere that we didn't know, we've not mentioned at all, and they just come out of nowhere. Because I don't think many of us last summer were mentioning some of the names that actually broke through in the Eredivisie, and it could be the same. It could be the same this year. So yeah, let's hope for national team's sake that there's a lot of top quality players that come through and they break into everyone's side, because we're going to need it coming towards the World Cup.
Yeah, the fun of the league is the goals that tend to happen. It's tons of goals, the bad defending that causes the goals, and also seeing all these talents coming through and trying to guess them is fun. Trying to put your finger on who it could be is part of why we watch Eredivisie, I think, and why the people could get into it for sure. Maybe they've tuned into this podcast trying to get into it, and they might now do so. And obviously different ways of watching it throughout the world. If you're in the UK, you can watch it on Triller TV. I think it's ESPN in America. I know that there are many ways of getting into it. So do that if you are interested in the league. And if you're one of those seasoned people that have enjoyed watching the league for a number of years now, it's another good season, I think, coming up. Anything else you want to talk about with the league?
For me, as a diehard fan of the national team, of course, the national team, what comes first, in my opinion. And every Dutch player, I see him playing well. I think of the national team at all, that he can be helpful there, or at least the Dutch clubs in Europe for the UEFA coefficient. So we are at some critical point after Go Ahead Eagles lost. I really hope the rest of the teams perform well. And of course, now we have something coming up also, the UEFA Nations League, which is going to be next month. I think within maybe 10 days, Koeman is going to start selecting the players. So I hope we will see some good names. Now we have Xerxes playing for Manchester United, Somerville for West Ham, and of course, Gakpo for Liverpool. We have so many big names coming up front. Noah Lang is back. Broby, hopefully he proves himself. So hopefully we see a new Oranje coming up, and hopefully the changes that happened in the big 5 teams will really come up with something good in the European competitions. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we've got 5 good sides at the top. I think we have a tight title race, and we hope that some of the clubs surprise us in Europe and go further than what we think. I think that we'd like to see PSV and Feyenoord do something in the Champions League, maybe upset a couple of clubs, especially with the young talents they have and the players that they have that could go further. Feyenoord, if you've got Ezekiel and you've got Malambo and you've got Reed, and you look at these Beelen, you're looking at these young players coming through, and you're thinking, can they hurt like a big team in the Champions League? And at De Kuip they can, and I hope they do. And yeah, it's always the excitement coming into a new season of, we're going to see all these new young players. We're going to see these new teams come up, and just hope it's an exciting season, loads of goals. And yeah, there's a lot of question marks around Ajax. Are they going to be any good? Is it going to be another dumpster fire? You just don't know. But hopefully the ones that are still in Europe progress as far as they can, keep the coefficient up there, because Portugal and France, there's people out there saying that the French league is so much superior, but to me it's not. Outside the PSG, there's not much there, and I think that the best teams in the Eredivisie can go against the best teams in France if you take PSG out and the money that they have. So I hope that the Dutch clubs do themselves justice in Europe, and we have a good season, and we get many new talents coming through, and the national team improves from it. And that's the main thing you can hope for. And you hope that those, because you always get it because we are such an English-speaking Dutch channel, that all these Dutch players do go to big clubs in Europe. And I hope that the ones that have moved abroad or moved to bigger clubs like Xerxes and Somerville don't flop and don't have that tag of being a Dutch flop for the rest of their lives like Memphis Depay has or Wout Weghorst has. Because we're in the UK, and the UK media can't mention Memphis Depay without saying flop after his name, and the same with Weghorst, Man United flop. So yeah, I hope it's a year of Dutch talents around Europe doing well. And yeah, we've got loads to talk about for the months to come, because you got players like Memphis Depay, he's not got a cup yet. So coming up to the national team next month, there's a lot of question marks around that. So we'll get into that when we do our preview podcast for the Netherlands. We've got a lot of talking points with them, with the players coming through. But yeah, in terms of our division, let's just hope for another successful campaign. And yeah, let's hope that there's a lot of talking about how great the football is, and not VAR, not stuff getting chucked on the pitch, constantly delaying games because a cup's being thrown on the pitch or fighting in the stands. Let's hope there's less of that and more just because the quality of football has been really good.
Really well said, Mike. And a note just to finish this really long show about Football-Oranje as a whole. We've obviously met in person today. It's been very nice. Really enjoyed it. Mike's been going for 12 years. I sort of joined 2 years after that, so about 10 years. And Abdul, how long have you been involved with us now? A couple of years? 3 years?
I think a couple of years.
Yeah. And it's just been, it's nice to talk about Dutch football in English. And I think people enjoy listening to it. I don't know why, but they enjoy listening to us talk about Dutch football in English as well. That it's nice to be able to do that for people. Really enjoy it. Let's continue it. I mean, there's obviously a lot going on the website. We have things on YouTube times, and there's lots on our Twitter page. Like we tweet like most days on X. Yeah, what's coming up this season, Mike? Well, the brains will hold the whole operation.
It's hard to say. The more the success has, the better the X page does, the better the website does, the better the YouTube will do, the better the Netherlands do. Basically, the whole thing wraps around if there's success, everything else is successful, and the national team is what pushes everything. So if Netherlands have a successful national team, everything else is brought up. So you need the Dutch players, the Dutch clubs to do well for everything else to go well, and we'll be there. We'll be there for all the big moments. Stay tuned if you want to know everything's going to happen in the Eredivisie. Make sure you follow the Twitter page. I can't call it X. It's just stupid. The Twitter page. That's where you'll get all the latest information, and stay tuned to the YouTube channel, because that's where you'll see the three of us talking about the Dutch national team. There'll be a few European podcasts pop up as well after Champions League games. Maybe the odd Eredivisie one in there as well, just to round things up. So yeah, I think that it's exciting in terms of the content we have for another year. And yeah, let's just hope that we actually tweet about some successes. We'd love to be behind the Netherlands win at a tournament, whether it's the Nations League, the World Cup. We got so close to the Euros, and then again we got, say it quietly, but the semi-final we got cheated again. The dodgy England penalty that we won't get into, but yeah, whether it would have been good enough to beat Spain and whether we got to the final, I doubt it. But yeah, it would have been nice to get there. And one day we will, fingers crossed,
Yes.
we will get there and we'll get that tournament win. And a Dutch club will win a tournament again. We got so close to Ajax. Hopefully we'll get close again. So yeah, there's plenty more to come and plenty more excitement.
Yeah. Can I say something? Well, Ajax almost won the Champions League 4 years ago. Feyenoord almost won the Conference League 3 years ago. We were so close to win the Euro, thanks to the penalty that was given against us. We did not. But as soon as you always get close to win something, you will win someday. As I mentioned before, I have been a diehard fan for 36 years. I don't mind waiting for another 36 years. And I'm sure our day will come. and now we all focus on the Nations League. I think Oranje can achieve something and can go further in that competition, with the hope, of course, for the Dutch clubs to perform also well in the European competitions. So a big season, a big year coming ahead, and we're really excited for it. Yeah. And one more thing, I've been part of this group for the past 2 years, but before that, I also followed Football-Oranje almost every live stream, every time. I'm glad to be a part of it finally. Really, guys, thank you so much.
Part of the elite club being allowed in. Don't even know how it happened. It just happened, didn't it? Yeah, if people listening obviously enjoyed this, do support us. If you can like this or subscribe to it or just following us on our social media page, then that's appreciated. There's always things coming up on social media pages, on the website, like daily, in terms of over like on the YouTube side of it, video content. That's podcast probably quite regularly every couple of weeks. It depends what's going on. I mean, the Dutch national team, when we cover that in the international breaks, we'll definitely do match previews, live streams after the games for sure. Eredivisie content. I mean, yeah, we'll do a handful of those podcasts throughout the season that are dedicated to the league, depending on what's going on. And then the European games, you know, PSV Ajax final draw, those big sides will be doing something there as well. So same again, really. Lots to look forward to. Stay tuned to us. Yeah, I think should we call it there? Call it a day. Thanks everyone for watching. See you on the next one.